Welcome to the STEM Pathways podcast, where we delve into the fascinating world of science, technology, engineering, and math. I'm your host, Rohan Sharma, a passionate explorer of all things STEM. Each episode, we bring you captivating stories, cutting edge research, and inspiring interviews with experts and enthusiasts who are pushing the boundaries of innovation. Whether you're a student or professional, or just curious about how the world works, join us as we unlock the mysteries of the universe and explore the endless possibilities of STEM. Let's get started. Today I'll be interviewing Jona Babi, who holds a master's from Stanford in electrical engineering and an MBA from Harvard. How are you doing today?
I'm great. Excited to answer your questions.
Yeah, so to get started, I wanted to ask what made you choose your major of computer engineering for your bachelor's?
That's a great question. So I hope maybe people from underrepresented communities will resonate more. So I was born and grew up in Albania, where it's a very poor country. And when you try to pick a college major, there is no options of, oh, follow your heart and do whatever you like. The options are you go do engineering, you go become a lawyer or a doctor, and maybe get a business degree. So I think among those options, I picked engineering because I was really good at math. And then it came easy to me basically to do anything related to mathematics or algorithms. And I think computer engineering, specifically among all types of engineering, because it kind of looked like the one that I knew the least and the one that I think the world around me knew the least. Like I hadn't seen a computer until my first day of college, so would only seen those in movies. Yeah, and that's why I picked it.
Yeah. So what was your experience while getting your bachelor's and where'd you do it?
So I grew up in Albania and I actually went to college in Greece. So my bachelor was in Greece. It was a very similar curriculum to the best US colleges. I'd say like if you look at like MIT or Stanford undergrad's curriculum in computer engineering, like software engineering or a mix with electrical engineering, is very, very similar. Um, and my experience, I mean, I hated it in the beginning. It was very, very hard. And it was also a new language for me, Greek. I hadn't really done any programming before, and I felt like the rest of the class was kind of more advanced. So it was really hard to go through the first year and second year. I think maybe after sophomore year, I was like, okay, sure. I think I can do this until the very end and get a degree.
Yeah. So when did you decide that you wanted to go and get a master's?
So, great question. I actually did not really know if I wanted to get a master's or anything like that. The only thing that I knew was that I wanted to come to the States. But at a high school, I could not apply for SATs because there was no place in Albania where you could take the SATs, and I had to go fly to Italy or some other country. And at that moment, my family didn't have the economic ability to fly me there. So I basically had a dream that I wanted to come to the States. And as soon as I went to Greece for my college, for my undergrads, I was asking all my professors, like, okay, what's my best way to get to the States? And they were like, oh, if you do a PhD, actually, it's very easy because you go there and you get a funded, you get a fellowship, so you don't really have to pay anything. And then you go through the masters in between and you get a PhD and you get out. So that's what I did. I studied hard and I applied for PhDs all over the United States in like, I don't know, 30 schools or something like that, grad schools. And when I came here to the States, I started my PhD, but then I quit after my master. So after I think year two, I finished my master credits in about a year and a half, and then I dropped out as it was not really a good fit for me. As you can tell, the reason wasn't I didn't really want to do like a PhD. I kind of took that path just because it was a way to legally come to the States to continue and staying here, basically getting a job here.
Yeah. So did you get your MBA right after that, or did you work first?
So I worked first. So I dropped out of my PhD with the actually with the intention that I'm going to go back. I was talking to a bunch of other professors, and I was like, I'm going to go to work for a year and come back to the PhD. Then I really liked the work. It was getting paid a lot. I was working very normal hours. As of in my PhD, I was pretty much working 24 hours trying to figure out things. And I never went back to Stanford to finish my PhD. So I only got the master's diploma or degree. And a few years into working, my managers at that time were like, "Oh, yeah, you're doing great. Maybe you can want to consider an MBA if you want to come more into the business side. You're quite technical." And then I also started to kind of get bored with just technology and only California, the Bay Area. I had never explored any other part of the States. So it was kind of like a decision, not really just for, oh, I'm going to get so much knowledge, but a change of scenery, kind of getting me more well-rounded and getting some knowledge on other areas and exploring other parts of the States. So I moved east after a few years of working to start my MBA.
Yeah. And what was your experience like while doing that, while getting that degree?
So the MBA, a lot of people do it just for networking, especially these like top schools like Harvard that I went to. I had no expectations and no idea what it was for. I really didn't know anyone that had gotten an MBA before I got into the MBA program. The experience was great, was amazing. You can tailor it to fit your goals or to suit your goals. I really enjoyed kind of learning a little bit, but also networking a lot, exploring a lot of different industries, different options, traveling a lot also. So I'd say it was a little bit of a work hard, play hard type of degree for me. As of my previous master's, was only work hard, no play at all.
Yeah. So, aside from networking, is there anything about Harvard's MBA program that makes it stand out?
Um, I mean, it has a very specific way of classes, like the way that they do the classes. It's called like a case um, study. So that's what they do. That's how they teach everything. I don't know if I agree if all classes should be taught like that with that method. That said, that's very very specific to Harvard, and it's very different from the other MBAs. I would say the biggest thing that you get is the name and the network, the brand on your resume and the network. If you want to learn things, you can learn the same things even just like by Googling them. You really don't need to get a degree. But if you want the brand and the network and a bunch of friends and a lot of fun, then you probably should do it. Otherwise, if it's just for the knowledge, Google it. It's going to be much cheaper.
Yeah. So, what jobs have you held then over the last few years?
So I, before business school, I was at Ericsson and then I moved at Apple. So I was mostly doing hardware engineering and slash product management. So I was more low level on hardware, firmware. So it was very close to what I was studying because most of my master's was me picking hardware engineering classes and projects. And then after the MBA, I kind of decided to go mostly into software. So I'm working for Google now, and before that, I was at Amazon. Um, so now I work for Google Cloud, and I was working at AWS, so Amazon Web Services. So I haven't really changed much in the last 4 or 5 years. Is very much cloud related technologies like software as a service, SaaS, enterprise, pretty much. Yeah.
Yeah. So, how do you think the software field's changing now? One thing I've heard from a lot of people is that the jobs are going down and it's getting harder and harder. When a few years ago, people thought getting a computer science degree was like a guaranteed six-figure job no matter where you go. Where do you think that's headed?
That's a great question. I have seen very, very firsthand the lack of the jobs in the last, I'd say, year and a half to 2 years. Um, I actually, on the side, also try to prepare people for interviews, for product management interviews. So it's like a a passion project of mine that I help people that want to get product management or project management jobs in big tech companies like mine, to kind of how to land the interview, how to prepare for them. So I had I have realized that before the pandemic, or in the beginning of the pandemic, when I was working with clients, they were able to get interviews in like a couple of weeks and maybe jobs in a couple of months. And now it's gotten really, really hard. I think people cannot even land interviews in like months. And then the average time, from my observations of clients being able to get jobs, is somewhere between maybe 8 months to a year, or even over a year. So I think the market is really, really hard right now in terms of job openings. That said, I don't really know any other better profession than going to study computer science. Even with the job market challenges currently, I still would vouch for high school kids to go pursue computer science if that's in their interests, because I don't think there is any other better degree to be able to just get out of college and get straight a six-figure job. Maybe now it's a bit more harder, but there is still so many software or hardware engineer openings compared to, I don't know, some business degree. Not to throw shade on any type of other degree, but the availability of the jobs and the amount of perks and benefits and the compensation packages or salaries are still way better off with a computer science degree than any other type of degree or job when you get out of college and further down the road.
And do you think part of the problem is that people are almost only looking at the big, like, I guess you've worked at half of them, but the big FANG companies like the Apples, the Amazons, the Googles?
I would say maybe that it probably is a part of the problem, a small part of the problem. I would say even other smaller startups or medium-sized companies, or not as known companies as the Mang or Fang, what is it called now? I would say even those companies have way less openings right now. You can see the cycle going from the VCs. The VCs have less money, so they invest in less startups, less companies. So then those startups will hire less people, and less startups will become medium-sized companies. So also they'll hire less people. So I think it's an overall trend, not just in the big tech. But that said, big tech has more people wanting to get in. So I would say if like when I was at Amazon, I was trying to hire, and it was so much easier. We would always get like really good qualified people coming through the pipeline, as of my friends, for example, that are hiring for startups. Is, I don't know, 10 times, to not say 100 times harder to hire for a startup, because people don't really know what the startup is doing, and you need to bank on the social capital of the CEO or whoever is backing the board of directors or the VC. As of, you don't really need to explain people Amazon or Google or Apple. You could just say like, yeah, they just apply on their own. So there's a lot of really good qualified people that come through, and these big tech companies.
Yeah. So you mentioned software and hardware jobs as some of the best ones you think people should major in right now. Do you think electrical engineering is also trending in a similar direction as computer science?
So that's a great question. My official title in my master's is Masters of Electrical Engineering. Um, there is a lot of mix between these titles, and a bunch of colleges have a department of electrical, a department of computer science, a bunch of other really great as well colleges have a department of computer and electrical, like different names. So um, I'd say don't get hung up on what the title is. I'd say both of all of these titles, not both, whatever the department of the specific school is called. Those computer science, by computer science, I mean software. By electrical/computer engineering, I mean more hardware. Usually those hardware classes will fall into that um, title, department name, or something like that. I would say both are doing really well. Now, electrical or hardware or computer engineering, it's like a bit harder in terms of you have equipment, you have hardware, you're not as mobile as just having just your laptop and coding from anywhere, it has less jobs, but also less people go into it. So I'd say the amount of people that graduate with those degrees and the amount of jobs are proportional to the amount of people that graduate with a software degree and the amount of jobs that are available for software. Uh, that said, though, I myself moved from hardware to software just because hardware, you're a lot more tied to a lab, usually, a lot more tied to being, you have to be in person. Like with Apple, I was flying to China, to the factories. So it's a bit more complicated and you don't really have as much freedom of move. And then if you are in one industry, it's harder to move into different sort of industries. As of if you know how to code, and you don't have an industry knowledge about, I don't know, moving from fintech to health tech, if you know how to code, you're probably going to do pretty fine without having so much specific knowledge. So I'd say software is a lot more versatile, but there is still a lot of hardware jobs. So if your passion is to do hardware, which was mine actually when I graduated and when I did my master's, that's still pretty good to pursue.
Yeah. So for my last question, I wanted to ask if you have one piece of advice for someone who's still in high school or early in college wanting to follow a similar career path as you.
That's a great question. Maybe this question is going to take me the longest to answer. Um, so I would suggest people in high school to go study computer science if they like it, or if they are in between a bunch of majors and they're thinking through, oh, what do I do, or what college do I pick based on what. I'd say do that. It's probably, if you like it, it's probably the best thing that you could do in terms of having like I would say a secure job or like a potential really good career path. I would say I'm not sure how things work in terms of undergrads in the States because I didn't do mine here. And it seems like it's getting more and more competitive with all the extracurriculars that you need to do and all of that. So do whatever you have to do to get into a good college. So figure out, what things you need to prepare. And I would say if you want to do computer science, do computer science at any college is fine. But if you can get into the top computer science colleges, that's even better. For example, I'll give you an example. Even Harvard is like an amazing school, but it's so far east, and I don't really think their computer science department is really good. When we had a career fair, um, I went to the computer science or whatever tech career fair, and it basically had, I think, 5 companies, and I didn't know any of the names. As of if you end up studying at Stanford, where I did my master's, go into one of those career fairs. There's every single one of the Silicon Valley companies. The FANG for sure, but others like NVIDIA, like LinkedIn, Atlassian, like any single company that you could think about. You want to think about TikTok, it will be there, and multiple times a year, like 4 times a year. And it's so easy to give your resume or to get more information, info sessions. So the college that you go to will define how easy it will be for you to get a job. So if you can get into these like Bay Area colleges, or I don't know, there is other really good ones, computer science ones, or for sure Stanford, Berkeley, Caltech, MIT is amazing. Yeah, I'm not sure, Georgia Tech, a bunch of other ones that come to mind, but I'd say yeah, like prioritize to get into like a really really good college that will make your life so much easier. Not that you cannot achieve the same results from any college, you could, but it's just going to be much harder for you to like grind and figure out how to get into an internship with, I don't know, Google or Amazon if you want to end up in big tech. um, and I would say grades matter, even though you would think that, oh, they don't matter, maybe in the long run. It just, again, it'll make your life so much easier if you really have good grades to get these opportunities. And if you can get hands-on experience, I mean, it's a whole different ball game now. When I started college, I hadn't seen a computer, didn't know how to program or anything. But if you can do stuff before in high school, it'll just make the transition period when you're a freshman and you have 1,000 things to think about and you're away from your family, if you can have some of, these programming skills in the back of your pocket, computer science will be such an easier major for you to decide to major on and to pick. Um, yeah, and what other like advice is just, yeah, like talk to your friends, don't be alone, like do all of these projects. It's a lot of projects, it's a lot of like staying late at night, which kind of like more hands-on. I'd also advise, if you have the opportunity to do hands-on projects or collaborations outside of your school, let's say, I don't know, maybe Google has like a summer boot camp. I'm just making it up. I don't really know if they have any, but just like look online for anything that you have some sort of introduction into these companies or into tech. Because if you stay 4 years in college just doing projects for your class in your laptop, that's good, but not as good as if you were able to get like 3 internships throughout those 3 summers with different tech companies. I think that's where you get more real life experience. Those projects are extremely useful, don't get me wrong, and that's where you learn how to code. But you'll see like a different scale and how companies actually work if you are able to get these internships during the summer.
Yeah. All right then. Thank you for joining me on the podcast today.
Thank you. And yeah, feel free to reach out with any questions to me. I'm happy to answer. If I can help anyone study computer science, I will be very, very happy.